So I thought I'd go through a different type of tree. I've got a pack of playing cards that actually have illustrated trees, which is quite useful for you to see the shape of a tree. So I've just picked one of those out, and I've got a large leafed lime tree. So it's just a different type of tree, and we're going to look at how we can achieve that. I'm going to go how we can achieve in the distance and how we can achieve in the foreground. So if I start wetting wet, let you see that one. So I've just done a video on some pre-mixed greens and how to use them, which I can link in the description. But this is a leaf green, and to dull that back just a little bit, I'm going to add a tiny bit of rose madder. I'm using a round number 6. And I'm looking for that lime green colour, which this leaf green is definitely lime. Okay, so then I'm going to come on where my water is. So that's flowing quite quickly. So I'm just going to give it a few seconds. I don't want it to flow too far. If I'm going to start anywhere, I start in the middle of the tree and work my way out. And I'm following the shape that I can see. Dabbing. It's got an arching shape, quite random. Just get the base shape in. You can always come back in with a little bit more paint or a little bit more water if you've hit a bit that's a bit dry. So I've got, it's a little bit dry at that top edge, so I'm just going to dampen that top edge. I'm going to take a bit more of that green in. So this paint is pretty much neat, and a bit more of that rose madder into it. I'm now biding my time. Depending on what climate you're in, you're waiting for that sheen to go off. So you've got that nice soft effect. Now you're going to come back in whilst it's still wet. Get a little bit more detail, not a huge amount. This is a distant tree, but just a little bit in there. Rinse that off. I'm going to come into some sepia. Just get a trunk in there. Remember, it's a distant tree, you want it to flow. This is not a precise tree, we're going to do that next. This is a rigger. Just picking up some of the sepia paint. So this is a dark brown, dabbing it off a little bit. And I can just bring this through, just in places. I want this softness. If it spreads too far, you're just going to dab it with a damp brush. Distant tree. Distant means less detail. So I'm just lifting out some of that. It's flowed ever such a lot. I want that dark to be in there. And I can blend a little bit more of that green over. So that's a distant one. So now we're going to go for a more detailed one. I still like that wet in wet softness at the top of the tree. I'm going to choose a flat, so this is a 1 centimetre flat, and the same colour, so that leaf green with a little bit of that rose madder in. I'm going to come on, and it's that arching motion that I want to make sure that I'm achieving. So this is giving us a base to work into. It's a nice unusual shape. Again, I've got a little bit of a hard edge happening here, so I'm just softening that in. I'm going to dab a little bit of sepia onto my round number 6 now. Just start to bring that in at the bottom. So I'm doing each side. That trunk, then just with a damp brush, I'm just going to run that through. That automatically, just with that damp brush, gives a hard and a soft edge. And it's also giving a dark edge and a light edge. Start to bring some branches in. You've got to just time this right. The hazard when you're videoing is you want to get it in, but the timing is so important. I'm going to take a little bit more of that green, make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to take a bit more of the rose in so it's more olivey. And I can start to come in again. So I'm not going to lose everything that I've done, but I need this next level of detail in here. So this is giving more depth. I'm doing that same rotation. So I've got this darker area appearing. And I'm going to come in with the rigger and some sepia. Just bring through some branches. At this point, it's good to still have that soft edge. That soft edge blending works really nicely, even on a detailed tree. The temptation to always be in control of the paint when you're doing detail means you don't get those lovely soft edges. And soft edges are what works. I'm just really just popping in a few branches at this stage. And with a bit more of that sepia, I can run down and create some more detail into the trunk. I'm just going to dry that off now, and then I'll add a little bit more detail on there. It's dry now, and it's just about adding a few little bits of detail. So I'm going to come into that sepia, and you can come over some of these branches and trunks just to start to accentuate those a little bit more. Pop in a few more little bits if you want as well. So this is just with my rigger. I'm just darkening areas. And this one right the way through. You can bring some onto the green as well, because then that last stage you're going to work round and that connects it all together. You really need to study tree shapes because they're all very slightly different. Some are very different. Trying to capture them all. It's the same with anything really, but with skies you end up looking and studying them more and more. Trees are a tricky subject, and it's just about studying them and getting that shape right. So I'm actually now picking up some of the leaf green colour by itself, so it's quite a lime green, and I've got it on a soft hog hair brush, so I'm going to stipple. So this is neat paint, and I'm going to stipple on. I'm not stippling everywhere, I'm just stippling on the main body of the tree, just in some areas. So I'm building up a little bit of density really now. You can't have the paint too wet, otherwise it tends to be quite blobby. And I want you to build up around those trunk areas to make sure that that density is there where those bits have overlapped. I'm then going to take a little bit of the darker one. So this is the leaf green with a bit of the rose madder, whatever premix green you've got, it will work. And just bring some of that in as well. Don't eliminate all of what you've just put on with that bright colour. You're just coming around it a little bit. It's just building up that density. You want those little highlights of that very bright green in there, but just not too much. It's like it's catching the light. And there we go. So that's a large leaf lime, distant and in the foreground.